Our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanate from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic pranam emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures hit on his character. Our spiritual master of the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. We take shelter at your lotus feet. I think I will take a chair. Yes. Sorry. Yeah, my legs are not. Yeah. I don't care really. Whatever, wherever.
Where you want to?
Yeah, it's okay
warm.
here. It's anywhere. That's
Warm here.
Thank you. Once you go, it will be, nobody will take care of that, is it?
I guess, but I will ask maybe Nana someday again.
She doesn't, she's on the road most of the time. She cooks breakfast, does she?
Yeah. But we have 2 more girls coming. Maybe they will do her job.
Right, that's true.
Mm. We'll see.
I'm not technologically. Know how to sort it out. To put that on you.
Oh, yeah.
I suppose like
Yes, sir. There's a new technology. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Vrajadana Randana Yasodanandana Vrajadana Randana Randana Vrajadana Yamunatira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Brajanana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajanana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Ganja Bihari 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 Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Brajadana Ranjana Nana Brajadana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajadana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajadana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Astotara Sata C.C. Madha's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Astotara Sata C.C. Madha's Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sirvaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Dham Ki Mathura Dham Ki Mayapur Dham Ki Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Ganga Maya Ki Jamuna Maya Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulasi Maharani Ki Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Gaur Premanande Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Nama Om Vishnu Pada Krishna Vastai Bhakti Srimati Bhaktivedanta Samane Dinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gurvani Vacharne Durvasesha Sunyavadi Pastadalistarne Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 3, Text 15. Mito Yadaisham Yadaisham Bhavita Vivado Do O at the end. Madva Madat Tamra Madva Madatamra Vilochananam Naisham Vadhopaya Iyan Ato Atonyo Mai Ujate Antardate Swayam Sma Matoya Daisham Bhavita Vivado Madvamatamra Vilochan Madatamra Vilochananam Madva Madatamra Vilochananam Naisham Vadopaya Iyanatonyo My Ujatain Tardatate Swayam Sma Mayujatain Tardatate Swayam Sma Mato Yadaisham Bhavata Vivado Madva Madatamra Vilochananam Naisham Vadopaya Iyanatonyo My Ujatain Tardadate Swayam Sma Mito Yadaisham Bhavata Vivado Madvamadatamra Vilochananam Naisham Vadopaya Iyanatonyo My Ujatain Tardadate Swayam Sma Mito Yadaisham Bhavita Vivado Madvamadatamra Vilochananam Naisham Vadopaya Iyanatonyo My Ujatain Tardadate Swayam Sma Mittoya Daisham Bhavata Vivado Nadvamatam Tamra Vilochananam Naishambadopaya Ianatonyo Mayudatain Tardate Swayam Sma Mitaha one another. Yada when. Aisham of them. Bhavita will take place. Vivadaha quarrel. Madhu amada intoxication by drinking. Atamra vilochananam of their eyes being copper red. Na not. Aisham of them. Vata upayaha means of disappearance. Iyan like this. Ataha besides this. Anyaha alternative. Mai on my. Ujate disappearance. Anta dadate will disappear. Swayam themselves. Sma certainly. Translation: when they quarrel among themselves, influenced by intoxication, with their eyes red like copper because of drinking madhu, then only will they disappear. Otherwise it will not be possible. On my disappearance, this incident will take place. Please repeat. When they quarrel among themselves, influenced by intoxication, with their eyes red like copper, because of drinking madhu, then only will they disappear. Otherwise it will not be possible. On my disappearance, this incident will take place. Purport: the Lord and his associates appear and disappear by the will of the Lord. They are not subjected to the laws of material nature. No one was able to kill the family of the Lord, nor was there any possibility of their natural death by the laws of nature. The only means, therefore, for their disappearance was to make show of a fight amongst themselves, as if brawling in intoxication due to drinking. That so-called fighting would also take place by the will of the Lord. Otherwise, there would be no cause for their fighting. Just as Arjuna was made to be illusioned by family affection, and thus the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, so the Yadu dynasty was made to be intoxicated by the will of the Lord and nothing more. The devotees and associates of the Lord are completely surrendered souls. Thus they are transcendental instruments in the hands of the Lord and can be used in any way the Lord desires. The pure devotees also enjoy such pastimes of the Lord because they want to see him happy. Devotees of the Lord never assert independent individuality. On the contrary, they utilize their individuality in pursuit of the desires of the Lord. And this cooperation of the devotees with the Lord makes a perfect scene of the Lord's pastimes. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umalatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Katamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitang Stang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savaduta Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitangscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpa Trubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane, Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharne, Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Pastadadishtarne. So this is quite a wild situation. When the members of the Yadav dynasty, they're all drunk, their eyes are copper red, and they're fighting with each other. What happened was, at one point, the young boys in Dwarka, led by Samba, they went to see some sages near Dwarka, in Pindaraka was the place. And they dressed up Samba as a woman who looked like she was pregnant. And so they went to the sages and they joked, saying that this was a pregnant woman. So the sages actually became angry. And they said, you will give birth to a lump of iron and to an iron club, actually, an iron club. And this club will be the cause of the destruction of the Yadav dynasty. So when the boys looked under the garment of Samba, they found an iron club. And they were completely devastated and full of anxiety. So they went to Dwarka and they told the king, Ugrasena, what had happened. And so he took the club and he had it ground into a powder. And they threw it in the sea. And there was one piece of the club that was swallowed by a fish. And the rest of it was washed up on the beach. And it grew into these kind of like like bamboo sticks, but they were actually iron rods. So the fish was caught by a hunter named Jara, and he found the piece of iron there, and he made an arrowhead from that. So then all this is Krishna's arrangement. So the point Prabhupada is making here, and with the point in the verse as well, is that it's not possible for them to disappear by themselves unless by Krishna's arrangement. So Krishna is arranging this situation to take place. Of course, he doesn't have to arrange a situation like that for them to disappear. He can just make them disappear, just like this. But Krishna arranges this disappearance. It's pastime. That's what Prabhupada says in the purport. It's pastime. Prabhupada says the only means, therefore, for their disappearance was the make show of a fight amongst themselves, as if brawling and intoxication due to drinking. So that so-called fighting would also take place by the will of the Lord, otherwise there would be no cause for their fighting. So Prabhupada gives the example of Arjuna. He was made to be illusioned by family affection, and the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. So the Yadu dynasty was made to be intoxicated by the will of the Lord and nothing more. So they're devotees of the Lord, and they are completely surrendered souls. They're transcendental instruments in the hands of the Lord and can be used in any way the Lord desires. And the pure devotees also enjoy such pastimes of the Lord because they want to see him happy. Devotees of the Lord never assert independent individuality. On the contrary, they utilize their individuality in pursuit of the desires of the Lord, and this cooperation of the devotees with the Lord makes a perfect scene of the Lord's pastimes. So we always have to remember that these activities are pastimes. They're transcendental pastimes, because if one doesn't understand that, you're thinking, my God, that's horrific. They're all smashing each other to bits with these iron rods. They're intoxicated and beating each other to a pulp, practically. But it's all an act. It's a make show. And all these personalities are all self-realized souls. And so they don't identify with the body. They understand they're eternal spiritual beings. So, of course, this subject is discussed also in the 11th canto with different aspects to it. There's one comment by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. What's the problem? Yes, I'm reading from the 11th canto. 11th canto, chapter 1. It's called the curse of the curse upon the Yadu dynasty. So in the purport, of course, this is Hridayananda Maharaj's purport. He's mentioning how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has revealed that although many demigods had taken part in the Yadu dynasty to assist the Lord, some members of the Yadu dynasty were actually inimical towards Krishna. Because of their mundane vision of the Lord, they considered themselves to be on the same level as Krishna. Having taken birth in the family of the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, they had inconceivable strength, and thus they misunderstood Krishna's supreme position. Having forgotten that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they would constitute a great burden, and consequently it was necessary for Krishna to remove them from the earth. There is a popular saying that familiarity breeds contempt. To destroy the contemptuous members of his own dynasty, the Lord caused a quarrel among them. For this purpose, he arranged for Narada and other sages to display anger against the Karshnas, the members of his family. Although many others who were devoted to Krishna were apparently killed in this fratricidal war, Lord Krishna actually returned them to their original positions as universal directors or demigods. It is the Lord's promise in Bhagavad Gita that he will always protect those who are favorable to his service. So there was a combination. There's all different kind of aspects to the Lord's family and the Yadu dynasty. There were demigods who had appeared, but there were also eternal associates of Krishna. But the demigods that appeared, they were returned to their original position as demigods, universal directors. And the ones that were eternal associates, they went back to Godhead. But then it's also mentioned that the Supreme Personality of Godhead used the Yadu dynasty, which was protected by his own arms, to eliminate the kings who with their armies had been the burden of this earth. Then the unfathomable Lord thought to himself, although some may say that the earth's burden is now gone, in my opinion, it is not yet gone, because there still remains the Yadava dynasty itself, whose strength is unbearable for the earth. Purport: Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has remarked in this regard that although ordinary people might think that the Lord has now removed the burden of the earth by killing the demons, re-establishing Dharma, and so on, Lord Sri Krishna could detect that there was further danger from the irreligious activity of his own family members who were acting improperly. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that a just king will refuse to punish his own enemy if he deserves punishment. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that a just king will refuse to punish his own enemy if his enemy is innocent, but will punish his own son if his son actually deserves punishment. Thus, although in the eyes of the world the members of the Lord's own dynasty are always worshipable, Lord Krishna detected that by their intimate association with him, some members of the Yadu dynasty had become indifferent to his will. Such whimsical members of the Yadu dynasty could act freely. Being relatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they would surely cause great misfortune for the world, and foolish persons would take such whimsical behavior to be the will of Krishna. Thus the Lord, whose desires are inconceivable, began to consider the need to annihilate the indifferent, contemptuous members of the Yadu dynasty. But then there's other, Srila Jiva Goswami has given another reason for the destruction of the Yadu dynasty. He emphasizes that the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead should never be taken to be ordinary material activities, nor are the Lord's associates ordinary persons. Although Lord Krishna apparently incarnates within this world for some time and then goes away, it should be understood that the Supreme Lord is eternally situated with his entourage in various abodes in the spiritual sky, such as Sri Goloka, Mathura, and Dwarka. The members of the Yadu dynasty are eternal associates of the Lord, and therefore they cannot bear to be separated from the Lord. Since Krishna was preparing to give up his earthly pastimes, if he were to leave the Yadu dynasty on the earth, they would surely become so disturbed by his absence that in their highly agitated state of mind, they would trample and destroy the earth. Therefore, Krishna arranged the disappearance of the Yadu dynasty prior to his own disappearance. Srila Jiva Goswami concludes that ultimately the members of the Yadu dynasty are never to be considered irreligious. Vaishnavacharyas have mentioned that the story of the disappearance of the Yadu dynasty is especially meant to help the conditioned souls achieve liberation from the bondage of material life. Within the three worlds, there were none as powerful and opulent as the Yadu dynasty. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the possessor of unlimited opulences, beauty, strength, knowledge, fame, and so on. And the members of the Yadu dynasty, being the personal associates of the Lord, were also endowed with inconceivable opulences. Therefore, when we see how a fratricidal war suddenly deprived the members of the Yadu dynasty of all their earthly possessions and even their lives, we can understand that there is no permanent position within this material world. In other words, although the members of the Yadu dynasty are eternal associates of the Lord and were immediately transferred to another planet where the Lord was appearing, their sudden disappearance through fratricidal war is meant to impress upon the conditioned souls the temporary nature of this world. Therefore, the apparent indifference or enmity of certain members of the Yadu dynasty towards Krishna should not be taken to be actual irreligion on their part. The entire situation was arranged by Lord Krishna to teach a lesson to the conditioned souls. In this connection, Srila Jiva Goswami has cited several verses from the Bhagavatam to prove that the members of the Yadu dynasty achieved their exalted birth in the Lord's own family by innumerable pious activities and by complete absorption in thought of Lord Krishna. In fact, it is said that in sleeping, sitting, walking, and speaking, they were unable to remember their own selves because they were simply thinking of Krishna. There's another verse in the Bhagavatam. Krishna says to Uddhava about the gopis. He said, "My dear Uddhava, just as great sages in yoga trance merge into self-realization and are thus not aware of material names and forms, similarly the gopis of Vrindavan were so completely attached to me within their minds that they could not think of their own bodies or of this world or of their future lives. Their entire consciousness was simply bound up in me." So they're so absorbed in Krishna that they couldn't think of themselves. They were thinking of Krishna just totally, 100%, totally absorbed in Krishna. They couldn't think of their bodies. They couldn't think of the world. They couldn't think about their future lives or anything. Krishna says their entire consciousness was simply bound up in me. So, so then all these pastimes of Krishna, all these situations that Krishna creates in this world, his apparent disappearance and the disappearance of the outer dynasty, they're all there for us to engage our minds in thinking of Krishna. Because Krishna kind of fluffs out the whole episode. Because he could come and just kind of annihilate all the demons just in a second. You know, they could be just gone. They could just disappear off the face of the earth. And actually, he doesn't even have to come to do that. So when he comes for the benefit of the conditioned souls. So it's also mentioned as well, it's quoted from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that we shouldn't think that Krishna left the spiritual world and came here and then went back to the spiritual world. Because Krishna doesn't leave the spiritual world. Krishna is everywhere. So he can be in the spiritual world and in the material world as well. Of course, Krishna's never in the material world, actually. What is the material world? Material world is forgetfulness of Krishna. So when there's no forgetfulness of Krishna, there's no material world. So we could be in the material world and in the material body, but if we're completely absorbed in Krishna, like the gopis, there is no material world. We're in the spiritual world, which is we don't even have to wait to leave our bodies. That's why a pure devotee, he doesn't aspire even to go back to Godhead. The Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Jamani Jamanishvari Bhavatad Bhaktir Haitaki Twayi. Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I want any number of followers, nor do I desire beautiful women. I only want your causeless devotional service in my life, birth after birth. So Prabhupada actually points out that this, when Lord Chaitanya says birth after birth, it means that he could be here birth after birth. It means that he doesn't even want liberation. That's what it means. That all I want is your causeless devotional service birth after birth. So he's not thinking about liberation. Of course, it's also recommended that in our position, if we're not on that kind of level, we should desire to go back to Godhead. It is good for us to desire to go back to the spiritual world. Because if we may be thinking, well, you know, I don't mind staying here birth after birth to serve Krishna, but we may not have such a pure desire, maybe mixed up with a desire to be in the material world. So we're actually aspiring to go back to Godhead, go back to the spiritual world, and not come back here. So, but we also hear prayers of pure devotees and meditations of pure devotees, where they say that they may go to heaven or hell, and they may never go back to Godhead, but as long as they don't forget Krishna, as long as they can remember Krishna, then they're happy. So, of course, we also understand that if one never forgets Krishna, he's in the spiritual world. If one is always with Krishna, then he's in the spiritual world. And there's another quote in one of these purports here in the 11th canto as well, how, I think it's from Jiva Goswami, he's saying that one should understand that when he hears and chants about Krishna, he will have the same result as the associates of Krishna who are associating with him in his pastimes. That when we hear about Krishna, when we chant Krishna's names, more and more we'll realize that Krishna is none different from his names, from his form, from his pastimes, and eventually we will find ourselves in Krishna's pastimes. We'll actually be in Krishna's pastimes. And also, like, when we hear about Krishna's pastimes, if we understand the absolute nature of Krishna's pastimes, we will understand that we're associating with Krishna by hearing about Krishna. We're associating with Krishna. And this is a very important meditation because there are people who study the Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita. I remember listening to Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, who had a lot of interaction with professors of like Hindu studies and comparative religion. And he said that they would sometimes, some of these professors, they would go to the pub and discuss Chaitanya Charitamrita over wine and whiskey. So they don't understand. They have an academic approach. In other words, they don't believe the Chaitanya Charitamrita. They don't believe in Lord Chaitanya. They don't believe in the absolute nature of Krishna's words. They don't believe that Krishna is none different from his name. And the result is they're talking about Chaitanya Charitamrita in the pub over a pint of beer. So, but this topic is also discussed further from different angles of vision. There's always different angles of vision in these subjects. And further on in the just a few verses later, a point comes up in the purports from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati about talking about the families of members of families of Lord Vishnu or incarnations of Vishnu who may not always be on a transcendental platform. And he gives the example of, there's the example of Lord Chaitanya who didn't have any children. And he had a reason for that. And the reason was that there can be a tendency for the descendants of great personalities and even pure devotees, but definitely descendants of incarnations of Vishnu or incarnations of Krishna, to use that position to claim superiority over everybody else. So Advaita Acharya, for example, he had 6 sons, and 3 of those sons he accepted as bona fide, and 3 he rejected as unbona fide. And then there's the example given of the son of Lord Nityananda, Virabhadra. And Lord Nityananda did not accept Virabhadra's progeny, his whatever progeny he had, sons or daughters or whatever. So, and then the subject is discussed there that what happened after the disappearance of Lord Nityananda, for example, is there sprung up a group, if you like, or they're called the Nityananda Vangsha. Nityananda Vangsha means the family of Lord Nityananda, or the Goswami caste. And so they claimed to be like special because they're in the dynasty of Lord Nityananda. And also one of the purports, Hridayananda Maharaj gives an example also of Srila Prabhupada's family, who were not all on the proper level of devotional service. And they even sued ISKCON at some point. So, and then, so the point is made that, in a sense, all living entities are members of Krishna's family. We're all members of Krishna's family. So, although we're all members of Krishna's family, it doesn't mean that we're all behaving properly. And then Krishna, he wants to show that there is a proper standard of devotional service and behavior and consciousness for one who is actually a devotee of Krishna. That is an actual intimate associate of Krishna. It's not a question of being born into Krishna's family or into a family of a pure devotee. Because again, that situation can be abused by those who are using it for some kind of social status. And they don't actually have the qualifications. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati also, he had a very strong, this is why some of those comments are coming in the purpose from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, because he was very strongly fighting this whole idea of smarta Brahmins, from people who claim to be who are born into Brahmin families, but didn't have the qualification of Brahmins. And so he was, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he was initiating devotees from lower castes, Vaishyas, Sudras. He was initiating them and giving them Brahman initiation, and this hadn't been done, at least for a long time previously. And when he went to Vrindavan and Parakram at one point, and he had hundreds and hundreds of devotees with him, many of the shopkeepers, they closed their shops, and the temples were closed. They wouldn't allow them in, and some of them even became violent and attacked the Parakram group. So, but the whole point was that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was so fearless in his preaching, because this was at some point even it was actually said that some of the Brahmins, they went to bribe the police they wanted to arrange for Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati to be killed. And the chief of police went to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and he admitted, well, we do take bribes, but I'm not going to take this one because, I'll go to hell for this if I become involved in killing a sadhu. So all these aspects are discussed there in the 11th canto and the purpose from different angles of vision. But the general meditation is that when we hear about Krishna's pastimes, his appearance, his disappearance, the appearance and disappearance of his family members, because it's all connected with Krishna, that it's all on a transcendental platform. And so by hearing these pastimes, we also become liberated. We become liberated, which is quite amazing in one sense, because, you're hearing about a quarrel among the family members of Krishna. They're intoxicated. They're hitting each other with iron rods, and their eyes are, blood red with fury. And we read this, and we're becoming liberated. So that's quite amazing, isn't it? You become liberated by reading that, by hearing about it. And so that point comes up also about, like we had the Lord Ramachandra's appearance day, and there is so much kind of pain in the pastime in different ways, but Prabhupada's making the point here also in the purport. He is taking it completely from the angle that the family of Krishna is completely transcendental, and that they are happy to engage Krishna's pastimes, and that this is a pastime of killing each other, and they're engaged in this pastime to please Krishna. They're pleasing Krishna. And so they are not suffering. They're not suffering. Just like in the Ramayana, and we hear about Sita's been kidnapping, and then all the lamentation that Sita and Lord Ramachandra are going through. These are all ecstatic emotions. And when we hear this pastime, we're becoming liberated. We're not reading this pastime and becoming miserable. You think there's so much kind of lamentation in that pastime in different ways. And the mood of separation. But we hear that pastime and we're becoming liberated. Liberated means liberated from all suffering, liberated from birth, death, disease, and old age. So, in other words, all these pastimes are not in the modes of nature. They're transcendental to the modes of nature. And the devotees who engage in these pastimes, although sometimes it seems like there's some kind of suffering going on, I made a point earlier that they are beyond the Brahma-bhuta platform. Because on the Brahma-bhuta platform there is nasoshati, nakanchati. There is no hankering, no lamentation. One becomes jubilant. And one becomes free from all miseries. And we have that verse in those verse in Bhagavad Gita, in the stage of perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from all material mental activities, practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of the greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. So, when we hear about the pastimes of the Pandavas and the apparent sufferings that Queen Kunti talks about, she says, let these calamities come again and again, because when we have these calamities, we remember you and again. We remember Krishna again and again. And by remembering you, we will no longer see repeated birth and death. So these devotees are actually beyond the Brahmabhuta platform. So they engage in relationships with Krishna, which are all transcendental and full of ecstatic emotion, even though it may appear to a conditioned soul that they seem to be suffering. They're not suffering. It's ecstasy. Ecstasy is not suffering. Ecstatic symptoms is not suffering. In the material world, when one is suffering, they are not ecstatic symptoms. One is not experiencing ecstatic symptoms. He is just suffering. That's all. So I'll stop there. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
You know these scholars that we are talking about that are discussing Chaitanya and they seem becoming
Oh yeah,
purified.
they are, yeah.
Because they are talking
Yeah.
incessantly. I mean, they seem to be talking a lot about Lord Chaitanya. So I mean,
Oh yeah, they're becoming purified, yeah. And especially if they read Prabhupada's purports. You know, and if they read the purpose of the pure devotee, there's bound to be something going in there. Yeah.
I remember from I'm saying that because I was remembering my school days, you know, and you read about. I was reading to the poetry and writings and of the different big writers in France. And you get immersed in the whole thing. You discuss it like in school and you get immersed. So I mean, those people, they get really immersed in discussing things, even if they don't kind of realize that it just gets through them. It's really gets through them, the whole thing.
Yes. At the same time, we should understand that the ability to understand the transcendental nature of Chaitanya Charitamrita and Bhagavatam is actually Krishna's mercy. That ability is Krishna's mercy. So it is a fact that they become purified, and it can be that they could become devotees at some point. But the example is also there of those who academically study Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, and they don't understand it because they don't have Krishna's mercy and the mercy of the pure devotee. That's a point that's there. But it is true that they also become purified. And part of that purification could be that they will come in contact with a pure devotee and, receive Krishna's mercy and the ability to understand it properly. What do you think of that?
Yeah, some Krishna consciousness is for even people that don't understand intellectually things like really just the immersion. I mean, I don't know how much, if they are not immersed enough, then that won't happen, but if they are immersed enough in the whole subject,
Yeah, that's. I mean, we can discuss this from different angles, because Srila Prabhupada was very intolerant of people who discuss Bhagavad Gita, for example, and speculate about the meaning of it, and saying that they're approaching it in an academic way, and they're spoiling the whole thing. And he would call them rascals. And so his presentation is showing that it's not academic, it's actually based on self-realization of the soul's relationship with Krishna. And it's not something, as Prabhupada says, the Bhagavad Gita should not be used as a tabletop, he says, or something to be just put on your coffee table for some kind of brief reference here and there. But it's something to, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he talks about opening the jar of honey so that you can taste the contents, and you will not be able to taste the contents by licking the outside of the jar of honey. So that kind of thing applies to, that comment applies to speculators and academics who are licking the outside of the jar of honey. They're not opening the jar. But again, it is true that there is purification there. But the problem is that they're really blocked by the false ego, and they have no faith. They don't have any faith in Krishna. They don't believe that Krishna exists. They don't believe that they think Lord Chaitanya is just some kind of historical figure, that they don't have any faith that he's an incarnation of Krishna. They don't have faith in devotees. They don't have faith in devotional service. In other words, they don't think it has any practical benefit to anybody, for anybody's life. That's why they're drinking whiskey while they're discussing it. So they don't think it's important. They don't recognize the purification aspects, and that one has to become free from bad habits, and in order to actually understand it, in order to really understand it. So they're just kind of like hovering around on the outskirts very superficially.
That's a significant difference in the devotee's approach to discussing Shastra to the scholarly approach. Is that the devotee, he seeks, he wants, he prays for purification.
Yeah.
Let me do this.
Yes.
For my purification.
Yeah. And he understands that he can only understand the subject matter by Krishna's grace and by the grace of a spiritual master. He understands he does not personally have the ability to understand. And the scholars, they don't think like that. It's all about them. That's what it's. They're not taking shelter of Krishna. They don't believe in Krishna. it's like, so it doesn't work like that. Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. Where will I leave this? Alina? Where will I leave it? In your hands.
Yes.
That's the safest place.
Thank you, Prabhu.